Thank you, Zoe and Roman, for your fearless, empowering speeches. Our next student speaker is Kelley Bapphavong. Kelley Bapphavong is a junior at Harvard University majoring in government. Kelley is originally from Rhode Island and comes from a Laotian and Thai background. Kelley has been interviewed on Fox News and CBS on this issue and has commented on it internally at Harvard as well. Let's welcome Kelley Bapphavong.
Thank you. Thank you, Swan, for that lovely introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kelley, and I'm a junior at Harvard. Tomorrow, the Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard lawsuit goes on trial, and I can't stress enough how important it is. This lawsuit may ultimately determine whether race will be considered in future college admissions. All eyes are on this lawsuit right now, and they're looking at us standing against them. Overall, I believe that race-based admissions policies are immoral. Most Asian Americans support Students for Fair Admissions in this case and know that they are being unfairly discriminated against. This lawsuit isn't just about affirmative action. It's about the effects of affirmative action and how it's hurting Asian Americans. You can be critical of how affirmative action is negatively impacting Asian Americans. My message and main takeaway I want people to walk away with today is clear. Race-based affirmative action, as it stands today, has failed millions of Asian Americans. Real alternatives to affirmative action that still create diversity on campuses do exist, and an overwhelming amount of people would support this. I'm not here just to reiterate how much of an injustice this is, but to push for change and to present an alternative. While many other speakers are rightfully emotionally speaking about the horrors of discrimination, I want to touch on that and present other options. As Chief Justice John Roberts once said, the way to stop discrimination on the basis of race is to stop discriminating on the basis of race. Race-blind admissions policies would create a more equal admissions process. It's not easy to voice my opinion about Harvard's admissions policies on campus. For all of the talk about diversity, many fellow students won't tolerate my views. I often get comments such as, "How can you be against affirmative action? That's so racist." And, "You should be grateful to Harvard. Why are you critical of them?" Of course I'm grateful to go to Harvard despite my Asian background. But why shouldn't I be critical? Contemporary affirmative action has failed. The plaintiffs challenging Harvard have already shown that Asian Americans are held to higher standards than others, and often their rejection boils down to the single factor of race. While the Supreme Court has ruled that race can be considered in admissions, it cannot be the only factor. On campus, I'm often labeled as ignorant and bigoted for opposing affirmative action. I'm one of the few students who openly criticizes Harvard. Even among friends and fellow Asian American students, this is a polarizing issue that has fallen on partisan lines for some reason. This isn't a Democrat versus Republican issue. This is an issue about equal rights for Asian Americans. My hope is that everyone will be able to unite around this issue and recognize that discrimination or discrimination via college admissions against the Asian American community is completely unacceptable. Employing the broad defense of diversity and saying that their admissions process is creating something more diverse misses the point of the Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard lawsuit, which seeks to highlight the negative consequences suffered by Asian Americans in the current admissions process. It is not mutually exclusive to advocate for diversity while also openly criticizing Harvard for discriminating against a specific racial group. If the point of affirmative action has been to support and bolster applicants who are part of groups that have historically been excluded or underrepresented, it has ultimately failed Asian Americans. While this lawsuit is critical of Harvard, we are in no way anti-diversity. Asian Americans all around, my parents included, have all journeyed from their homeland in pursuit of the American dream to provide better opportunities for their children. One of these things they hope for is something they were often denied quality access to, a good education. My parents, for example, came from Laos and have been instrumental in providing for my education. There is no doubt that some of the best universities in the world, including Harvard, are in America. To see educational opportunities yanked from Asian Americans simply because of their race is horrible. Whether or not Harvard truly discriminates, this is a time for everyone to reflect on whether or not affirmative action has accomplished its goals and helped people who have historically been discriminated against. I believe that an admissions process which would eliminate the potential for discrimination and achieve genuine diversity would be race blind and analyze an applicant's socioeconomic status and how they handled both their opportunities and disadvantages inherent to their socioeconomic status. This process would accomplish the goals of affirmative action better than the current race-based ones do, as race-based affirmative action merely creates an illusion of diversity. Race-based affirmative action assumes homogeneity among racial classes and doesn't account for other important factors that a socioeconomic basis does. It instead reinforces racial stereotypes and drives a wedge between classes within racial groups. Socioeconomic status, however, permeates all racial classes and allows applicants to be judged in relation to their opportunities. A form of affirmative action that holistically reviews socioeconomic status would create a meaningful diversity of ideological and cultural experiences. This kind of system allows college admissions to be more meritocratic and look at how applicants have handled their situation and excelled, while also leaving room in to factor for disadvantages that have experienced based on their different identities. To evaluate people through a socioeconomic lens rather than a race-based one also allows for less bias and potential discrimination to arise for specific groups. Race-based discrimination can arguably create more racism as specific identities are targeted. Race-blind, socioeconomic-oriented admissions policies should be implemented by universities across the nation. Affirmative action that relies on race alone is insufficient in evaluating a person's character and allows universities such as Harvard to, intentionally or not, harm members of specific communities. Again, my goal in giving a speech here is twofold. The size of this rally and the amount of support here shows that Asian Americans are not going to take the discrimination that they have faced. Race-based policies ultimately fail, and we need to instead switch to something that creates more genuine diversity, such as socioeconomic policies. If you take one thing away from my speech, I want it to be that you know alternatives to affirmative action that still create diversity exist. Being Asian at Harvard is not easy, and I hope that the eradication of Harvard's current admissions policies will allow Asians to no longer be discriminated against. Thank you.